Ilia Topuria is a problem. Ever since getting to the UFC, Ilia has been dominating his opponents, and ever since he got into somewhat of a skirmish with Paddy Pimblett and after his recent victory over Bryce Mitchell, his name value started to increase. And at this point, based upon the skill he's shown, I honestly think at this point you could make the argument that he's a top 5 or a top 7 fighter in his division, but also going forward long term, I think he's going to be one of the elite fighters. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA. I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Historically, when you look at the UFC and MMA as a whole, typically you see the guys at the top in terms of champions or top 5 fighters being somewhat older guys. But at this point, we're seeing the next generation of fighters, and the thing that we're learning about them is they're much better, much quicker due to the fact that they were training MMA throughout their entire lives. When you look around the UFC, you talk about guys like Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot, Rafael Fiziev, even Ilia Topuria. There's just so many different younger fighters that are getting very good very quickly. But when you talk about Ilia Topuria, he's an extremely talented fighter who, in my opinion, has a ton of promise going forward. And even besides going forward, I think he has a ton of promise right now. I think he's extremely talented and certainly a top 5, if you want to be conservative, say a top 7 fighter in the featherweight division. But let's quickly look at Ilia's game to really describe why I think he's so talented right now and why he has so much promise going forward as well. Well, at this point, Ilia is extremely versatile. On the feet, he has a really nice jab, he has a really nice left straight, uppercut, hook, cross. He has the ability to switch stances whenever he wants. He also has a really nice ability to throw kicks to the legs, throw kicks to the body, and throw kicks to the head. And the thing about Ilia on the feet is he is very intricate. He does a really nice job at using speed and really mixing things up, but also the real differentiating factor about Ilia is the power that he possesses. Ilia has an insane amount of power in his hands, as we have seen him knock out a bunch of guys. He hurt Bryce Mitchell significantly in their matchup, and that knockdown that he had led to the eventual finish, but also in the matchup before that when he fought Jai Herbert, who's probably a welterweight, the size of a welterweight at least, he knocked him out gruesomely. So clearly the power that Ilia has in those hands are no joke. Now in close, Ilia also fights pretty well in the clinch by throwing knees and elbows, and overall just has a pretty good control in there. But typically he'd rather be at a striking range as opposed to in the clinch. But the great thing about Ilia is he's not only really good and really intricate on the feet, he also has phenomenal ground game. Now, in his most recent matchup against Bryce Mitchell, that ground game was going to be tested. And the thought process by many, including myself, was if Ilia wanted to win this matchup, he probably was going to need to keep it on the feet. If the matchup went to the ground, Bryce would probably have the advantage. But actually, as it turned out in that matchup, not only did Ilia look much better on the feet, but he also looked much better on the ground, which was something that not a lot of people were expecting. People, including myself, knew he was really good on the ground, but they didn't know he was that good. Ilia was literally ragdolling Bryce Mitchell in that matchup, and then he eventually got the submission on Bryce Mitchell, who's a great submission artist himself. So it kind of just showed how good he truly is on the ground. But of course, Ilia has the ability to shoot for takedowns and get them at will. Once he's on the ground, he does a really nice job at holding position and throwing ground and pound shots, or even looking for the submission. And overall on the ground, especially based on this recent matchup with Bryce Mitchell, I think Ilia has proven that he's elite on the ground as well. Now in terms of his chin, Ilia has a really good chin. In terms of his defense, I would say he's okay, but there's one specific thing that he is a little prone to, and that's that high kick. We saw him get hit with it a little bit in the Bryce Mitchell fight, but we also mainly saw him get hit with it in the Jai Herbert matchup where he got caught, and he got hurt pretty significantly in that matchup. Now obviously he was able to regather himself, come back and get the knockout finish, but it's certainly something that he does need to focus on, that high kick. But overall, when you look at his game from top to bottom, I would say he's extremely good. And at this point, I would say he's very close to being elite, maybe even elite already at this point. We don't know because we haven't seen him go up against the elite competition yet. The question at this point is, what should the UFC do with Ilia Topuria, coming off an extremely impressive performance against Bryce Mitchell? Well, of course there's always that option to put him up against against Paddy Pimblett, but in my opinion, I don't even think that matchup would be fair. Ilia is literally significantly better than Paddy in every single area. There's nowhere where Paddy's better than him. The only area that you can give Paddy an advantage in is size, but besides that, Ilia is far superior in every other aspect. Striking, it's not close. Paddy isn't technical on the feet at all, and he showed in his last matchup that he didn't make any improvements really at all. And Paddy also leaves his chin up in the air all the time and doesn't have good fundamental defense, so he would probably get caught by Ilia, and if you get caught by Ilia, you're probably going to get knocked out, even though Paddy does have a really good chin. Now on the ground, I would say it's a little bit closer, but I would still give a decent edge to Ilia Topuria in that sense as well. But I will say that Paddy does have pretty good jiu-jitsu. But honestly, that's a matchup that I don't think the UFC wants to put on. I think they know that Paddy would most likely lose that matchup, and they don't want a big star like Paddy Pimblett to lose this early on into his career. So looking at some other guys in the featherweight division, you talk about guys like Max Holloway. I don't think he's going to get that matchup. It's way too early for Ilia. Other guys like Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett are already booked for the interim title. Brian Ortega is free, so I guess that's a potential matchup. There's been a bunch of rumors for Arnold Allen to go up against Max Holloway, so he might be out as well. So really the only guys that you have left are Calvin Kattar and the Korean Zombie. Now Calvin Kattar is just coming off an injury, so I don't know how likely that matchup is, but when you talk about the Korean Zombie, I think this could be a perfect matchup. Now I know Zombie is also coming off an injury, so we'll see how long it takes him to come back from that, but this would fit in perfectly with the UFC's model. What the UFC likes to do is they like to put older legends against young up-and-comers because that builds the brand of the young up-and-comers. So this potential matchup between Ilia Topuria and the Korean Zombie could fit in perfectly to their philosophy. This would certainly be a very favorable matchup for Ilia. I do think Ilia is probably going to be better everywhere, honestly. Of course, the Korean Zombie is really good on the feet, but I think Ilia is going to be faster. I think he's going to be more powerful, and after the beating that Zombie took in his last matchup against Volkanovski, who knows how his chin's going to fare after that. On the ground, Ilia is certainly going to be better, and I just think this would be a pretty good matchup for the UFC to put on. So it's certainly going to be very interesting to see how the UFC moves forward with Ilia Topuria, an extremely talented young talent. But whatever does end up happening, I will say I am extremely excited to see him fight. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Ilia Topuria could be a future champ in the UFC, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.